Thank you for joining us. This is Bill Stone once again, and we're going to be looking at the fifth of the 5 big temperament scales, emotional resilience. In this section, we're not talking about mental illness. If somebody's, to put it flippantly, has a broken brain, in learning how to react appropriately in public can be a very painful and a very difficult task. And if in fact you have suffered yourself or know people that have, it's just very hard. We're talking about the normal range of functioning that we encounter in the business places. And again, these things are not readily available by looking at somebody's resume, but rather these are the things that may be hidden. And it becomes especially important to understand emotional resilience because this is what can truly make a difference in our capacity to build good business relationships. If you have the handout, the big 5 temperament scales in front of you, you'll see this is the last of the 5 we're going to be talking about. And once again, if you haven't, I would encourage you to download that at our website. And I also further encourage you, as you have questions or ideas about any of this material, I'd very much like to hear from you. And of course, certainly if you would like to apply some of this in your place of business, and we can help you with that, we'd be very pleased to talk about that possibility. In some material on the big 5 temperament scales, you will see this section referred to as neuroticism. I prefer talking about emotional resilience because I think that describes a little more accurately what we're looking for here in our places of business. That is, our capacity to manage our emotions in a way that helps us be more empathetic toward others, but in the same time not become so anxious that we can't make good business decisions. George Washington is supposed to have said that he enjoyed the sound of the whining bullets flying around him during the heat of battle. Certainly, this is one example of emotional resilience. Those of us who are able to manage our emotions are able to react appropriately to a stressful situation, but nevertheless move ahead regardless of our emotional state. It might mean thinking before you speak, or if you're in a stressful situation, at least be able to react calmly, even though you might be like the proverbial duck who seems placid and calm on the surface, but his little feet are going 1,000 miles an hour underneath him. We're dealing here with finding that balancing point between being the Sphinx, who's totally stoic and expressionless, and just turning into a wet, dysfunctional mess. Those of us who are in the Sphinx end of the scale may be seen as being cold and uncaring. Those of us who tend to cling to the wet mess end of the scale tend to not be relied on when we're in a crisis. People who are emotionally reactive are often dependent on others for feedback to maintain any sense of positive regard for themselves. This, of course, can almost become enslaving because your decision-making is based not on what's the right thing to do or what's going to be helpful to your business, but what other people will think about it. And as you know, in the heat of difficult business decisions, very often those who are the audience, those of us around us who are not really part of the decision-making team, may just resist any reasonable effort on your part to solve what happens. And if you become dependent on them for your own feelings of well-being, it's going to hamstring your efforts. I think being calm and level-headed is certainly desirable, but we don't want to be so calm and level-headed that those of us who look to us for leadership think that we don't care about how they're doing. I was doing a workshop with some managers in a plant at one time, and they had just gone through a rather difficult layoff. And one manager observed to her colleague, "Gee, you just seem so calm and able to handle this so well, and here you are on this scale as emotionally resilient." And he said, "Yes, I was calm, and I was able to put things into perspective, but you've got to understand it tore my heart out to let those people go." So the perception they had of the individual was he was calm and level-headed, and he was able to set aside his emotions to do what needed to be done, but he certainly wasn't insensitive to what was happening. So on the one end, we don't want to have someone who just has to respond to what other people tell him, because otherwise they'll feel badly if they let somebody down, as opposed to a sociopath who doesn't care what anybody thinks about anything. People who are constantly emotional needy or like to keep things in turmoil may be getting just what they need. And in the short run, they think that by upsetting the people around them, they're getting what they need. They need some time for careful reflection, because while this may work for them in the short run, it certainly isn't helping them in the long run, and it certainly isn't helping their business. On the other hand, people need to be appreciated. I'm reminded of the story of a married couple who were in marriage counseling and had been together for quite a long period of time. And one partner said, "Gee, you haven't told me you loved me for 15 years. And the other partner said, "Well, nothing's changed." Certainly some of us need reminding that we're effective more often than others, but we can't remain completely stoic in all situations and assume that because someone is doing a good job and is effective, they don't need that reassurance from time to time. Good managers tend to be emotionally resilient, but they also are able to express empathy and appreciation in an encouraging way when it's appropriate. Irregardless of whether you're in a hiring interview or working with a colleague that's already on board, when you use these questions, you want to get as much detail as possible from them. You want them to describe things and listen, and use some of those active listening skills to encourage them to continue. You're trying to do two things here. In a hiring interview, you want to get some understanding of what they're going to be like when they get on board and how they're going to handle stressful situations. If you have a team that is rather stoic about things and may seem a tad indifferent to difficulty, you may want someone who's more emotive. If you are looking at the performance of an incumbent, then you want to take a good look at how they've handled conflict and to get as much detail so that you'll be able to coach them going into the future. Certainly download the Big 5 temperament scales if you haven't done so already, and get ready to move to the next section, taking action. I hope you'll contact us if you have comments or questions or some way that we can help you in your particular business. And in the meantime, get ready to go to the next section on taking action, where we'll explore one approach to putting what you've learned so far to use for your own personal growth. Again, this is Bill Stone, and thanks for listening.